Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing two electric types in the Open Ultra League that received massive buffs in the Season 20 balance patch that are now both a lot stronger than they were before. And these are Shadow Ampharos and Heliolisk. For Shadow Ampharos, Brutal Swing and Trailblaze now cost less energy, and for Heliolisk, a massive rework of Parabolic Charge, which is now a move that has a 2/3 chance to boost up Heliolisk's defense. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's go hunting for Feraligatr with two buffed electric types in the Open Ultra League. Hopping into the first match, we see a great lead Virizion versus that Licky opponent. Safe switches into Tentacruel, and out comes Heliolisk. Heliolisk is going to shield first as the opponent will go for the Scald, fishing for a debuff, but the debuff does not come through. Heliolisk farming up just shy of the back-to-back Parabolic Charges. Parabolic Charge, no shielded, picks up the knockout and gets the defense boost. And a defense boost on a Pokemon that's pretty glassy like Heliolisk is extremely valuable, as this suddenly makes Heliolisk feel way bulkier than it typically is. Heliolisk gets a second Parabolic Charge boost, and now look at the damage, or I should say the lack of damage that it's going to take here. Licky goes for the Body Slam, that does nothing to Heliolisk. In comes the Tapu Koko. My phone is frame dropping like crazy. I'm able to make the Breaking Swipe. They shield, and I do actually get the Breaking Swipe attack drop. That is quite nice. The frame drops, of course, much less so. Here, I try and just go to get a little bit of energy on Virizion before I bring in the Shadow Ampharos, as I know Ampharos will be able to take at least one move. And now I can start firing off Trailblazes. The pacing on Ampharos is now ridiculous. Trailblaze is straight 3. Brutal Swing is now, I believe, 3-2-2. And if you Trailblaze first, the next Brutal Swing is only going to be 2 as well. Here, I actually wait a turn there, so that way I don't concede any farm to my opponent. I would have got the farm down there. It was 8 turns versus 9, but I end up waiting the turn to make sure that it's actually a simultaneous KO, and that way the opponent is not going to get the energy they need to make 2 Nature's Madnesses, so I can farm down and take the game. Picking up a terrible lead in the next match, Virizion versus Clefable, but I can save switch into the Ampharos, and Ampharos will outpace here because of that new Trailblaze pacing. I'm able to land the Trailblaze, which is terrific. I call the bait. I get smacked with a Moonblast that does a ton of damage. In comes Malamar, and I get to fire off a boosted Brutal Swing. This will do quite a lot of damage. Malamar can survive, but they elect to use the shield, understanding that that move is boosted. I'm going to bring in Virizion. Even though Psywaves will hit for super effective damage, this is the Ultra League. Pokemon are going to be able to better withstand fast move pressure in the Ultra League compared to Psywave in the Great League. I'm at back-to-back Leaf Blades here, which is terrific, but the opponent is going to win Charge Attack priority. Virizion, even if I get KO'd here, I'm fine, but I actually don't get KO'd. I'm going to undercharge the Leaf Blade and look for a snipe with a Volt Switch. So I bring in Heliolisk. It's actually a simultaneous switch. Heliolisk and that Clefable. I will commit the shield. Clefable baits with a Swift. Oh my goodness, that is really unfortunate. I do win Charge Attack priority with the Parabolic Charge. Parabolic Charge picks up the knockout, and I get another defense boost. So now I am +1 in this endgame. There's a Feraligatr, and that defense boost means that I'm going to very comfortably be able to take a Hydro Cannon here. Taking a Hydro Cannon, not something I have to worry about. I bait with the Breaking Swipe. I'm actually able to get the shield from the opponent. I don't get the Breaking Swipe debuff. I elect to shield because even though I can survive it, it's still the move that's going to do the most damage in this endgame. So I'll shield, make the Parabolic Charge, pick up the KO, get another defense boost, farm down the Malamar, and take the win. Bad lead in the next match, Virizion versus Dragonite. I'm going to save switch into Shadow Ampharos. Opponent is able to outpace. Watch this play right here. If they stay, this is an incredibly annoying play you can make as the Ampharos, because Brutal Swing does a ton of damage, so they have high incentive to shield. So I'm going to go for a Trailblaze, actually, to boost up my damage, and then if they stayed in, they would have to deal with boosted Volt Switches and get outpaced to the next Brutal Swing. Ampharos is genuinely just such a ridiculously strong Pokemon. I already ran Shadow Ampharos almost constantly, and that was with old pacing that wasn't even that good. Here I try for the farm down with Heliolisk. I'm not quite able to get it, so I will be forced to shield up a Blast Burn, but energy on Heliolisk will always go quite a long way. In comes the Dragonite. Heliolisk gets the double up. That is terrific for me. Opponent cannot afford to shield. They're going to let it go. In the back is Skeledirge, and this is not great. I'm going to go for a Breaking Swipe, and arguably this is a misplay. What I should do is go for the Parabolic Charge, as it is a higher chance of getting that boost. But instead, I go for two 50-50s, I don't get either, and because I don't get either, I'm actually going to lose this game. With a debuff, I think there's a chance that I could have survived 2 moves here, but without a debuff, there is no chance. I'm not going to be able to make it. So in hindsight, I should have gone for the Parabolic Charge. It was just better odds to go for than trying to win off a Breaking Swipe. Hopping into the next match, Virizion sees a great lead as it leads into Pangoro. Definitely a Pokemon I want to keep away from Heliolisk if at all possible. They're staying in, they no-shield a Sacred Sword, in comes Drapion, and here, honestly, I make a bit of a miss-swap. In hindsight, I should have gone into the Heliolisk and then just gone for Parabolic Charges, tried to buff up my defense, because Ampharos, of course, is going to be completely walled. To be honest, typically, in previous seasons with Ampharos, I ran Focus Blast, so Ampharos into Dark Poisons was a lot more fine than it is now, so a little bit of muscle memory there on my part, and unfortunately, I end up in not the greatest position as a result. They are forced to commit a shield, as boosted Brutal Swing would do quite a bit. They can pick up a knockout with an Aqua Tail, and I think at this point, because I know their Aqua Tail crunch, I'm just going to farm down with Virizion. They can make a move, but I'm going to resist it, and I'm just going to get a farm down and exit with quite a lot of energy, and the hope is that my energy will be good. A Karate Chop user into Heliolisk is not ideal, but since they stayed in to take the Sacred Sword, which seeing their third is Tentacruel is a bit of a surprise, then I think they're low enough where I can actually just farm this down. I'm going to shield, even if they bait, I think I'm okay here. Then I /bait, and I get the farm down, and now we can fish for these Parabolic Charge boosts. Again, it's a 66% chance. I get the buff, and this situation right here is, again, where this Parabolic Charge buff comes in clutch, because the Scald doesn't KO. I survive it, I make a second Parabolic Charge, and I just get to knock them out and win the game. And I get another Parabolic Charge boost for the road. We see the worst possible lead in the next match, leading Virizion into Shadow Nidoqueen. Shadow Nidoqueen, if you see it, it's going to be a tremendously uphill battle. I go for the Trailblaze to boost up my attack. And here, I'm expecting they're going to go for a bait, so I call it, but it's the Earth Power, and I get KO'd. And this is so bad. Oh my goodness. I bring in Virizion. Opponent is going to switch out into Galar Moltres, a very cool pick. This is where Stone Edge would be nice. I did consider running Stone Edge. I have 2 Virizion, one that has Sacred Sword Leaf Blade and one that has Sacred Sword Stone Edge, but I opted for the Leaf Blade version just because I wanted as good as possible coverage into Gator. Opponent is going to be firing off a charge attack. I commit the shield. It is the Brave Bird. I switch into Heliolisk and I snipe with a Volt Switch. But there's still the Nidoqueen, and the Nidoqueen is not in a range where I can knock out with a Breaking Swipe. I'm going to go for the Breaking Swipe because at this point, I just need damage on this Nidoqueen. Breaking Swipe does not get the debuff. That 50-50 coin flip, not in my favor. I'm going to commit the shield. It's the Earth Power, and I'm going to overfarm here. I try to throw after 2, but unfortunately the game overtaps and makes me throw a third. Opponent could have CMP tied me there with a Fang and KO'd, but instead, they're going to put all of their chips into Low Kicks as their final Pokemon. Breaking Swipe, can it debuff? No, it cannot. And I think with no debuff again, I am just lost here, unfortunately. If I got a debuff, I could have potentially been in a better position. I was really hoping that one of these Breaking Swipes would debuff, but 50-50 odds. Half the time, it's not going to go in your favor. I do get to land the Sacred Sword, which is great, but unfortunately, I'm in 1 Sucker Punch range. So even though a Volt Switch would KO, I just can't survive it, and I do lose the match. We now move to the next match, leading Virizion into Malamar, and I'm going to switch out and send in Ampharos. Ampharos going to get hit with a charge attack from the Malamar. It's the foul play. That does quite a lot of damage. Ampharos going to return fire with the Trailblaze. I really like going for the Trailblaze first, looking to boost up the attack of the Ampharos, and now I can threaten a shield with the boosted Brutal Swing. They are going to commit the shield. They get a big farm down, and I'm actually going to bring back in the Virizion. Again, Psywave hits from super effective, but this forces them to go for superpowers. Superpower, of course, will lower their attack and defense and make it a lot easier to deal with the Malamar. Malamar is going to go for yet another superpower. I'm going to look to get them low, and I actually get the full farm down. That is incredible. In comes Tentacruel. I'm going to launch a Leaf Blade, and then it's all up to Heliolisk. In comes Heliolisk. They're staying in with the Tentacruel, which is pretty good news for me. I will commit the shield, because if possible, I would love to try and fish for one of those Parabolic Charge buffs. And in the back, it's Shadow Feraligatr. Shadow Feraligatr just has nowhere to run against this entire team. Parabolic Charge gets the boost and picks up the knockout. In comes Tentacruel, and at this point, the opponent is going to realize there's no longer a win condition. They're just going to let that through, and Heliolisk is able to take the win. Terrible lead in the next match, Virizion into Skeledirge. Skeledirge stays into the Ampharos safe switch, so let's apply some pressure with a Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing gets the shield. It really sucks to be a 5-turn user going up against a 4-turn user because you can never throw in good timing. You're always going to be giving a ton of turns to the opponent. Here, my opponent is going to switch out and send in Licky. Licky is extremely bulky in the Ultra League. Trailblaze, even though I can boost up, still does basically nothing. I'm going to let this go. Our switch clocks are very heavily misaligned, and I can take advantage of that and switch back into the Virizion. Virizion, of course, has no coverage moves, at least that I'm currently running, for the Skeledirge. So I'm basically sacrificing the Virizion by switch locking it here, but the goal is I just want to get as much damage as I possibly can on the Licky. Licky able to save itself on 1 HP. Back in comes the Skeledirge. No Stone Edge available for me, so I'll fire off the Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade will connect. I'm going for another Leaf Blade here, and I do have a Brutal Swing available on the Ampharos. I switch, go for the Brutal Swing. Oh my goodness, I didn't see the Incinerate. Is this the CMP sack swap? Yes, it is. We get the catch and the CMP tie, wasting their Disarming Voice, and now I can bring in Heliolisk. I have a tough choice to make. I know that I can survive a Disarming Voice. I decide to let it go. In the back, it's the Panda Bear, and I'm going to fish for the Parabolic Charge defense boost. Parabolic Charge does big damage. I don't get the boost. I switch out into Virizion, and they have so much energy stored on the Panda. I will commit the shield. It's the close combat. They're firing off another close combat as well. This will pick up the knockout. They're very heavily debuffed. My Heliolisk is very low. Helio hangs on with 1 HP. In comes Licky, and I throw the Breaking Swipe. The question will be, is that Skeledirge in Volt Switch range? Yes, it is. Heliolisk 1 HP, barely able to take that win. Picking up a terrible lead in the next match here, leading Virizion into Tentacruel. I save switch into the Shadow Ampharos, and out comes Giratina. Giratina going to be hit with super effective damage from the Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing is cheaper, but it also did get a slight damage reduction. Whereas previously, Ampharos Volt Switches plus the Brutal Swings could pretty much two-shot Giratina, especially if it was not a good Giratina. Now, Giratina is actually able to hang on, which is a little bit unfortunate. So you're able to get to more Brutal Swings, but they are going to be, unfortunately, a little less effective. Giratina firing off its charge attack here. This will be the Dragon Claw. I'm going to try and snipe with Volt Switches from the Heliolisk. Opponent is going to preserve that on 1 HP, bring in the Panda Bear, and this is not great for Heliolisk. I go for the Parabolic Charge. I get the defense boost, which is quite nice, and I'm going to commit the shield. They're going to just go straight Night Slash here. No point in debuffing their defense. I'm going to bait. I will go for the bait with the Breaking Swipe. If I can get shields down and snipe with a move from Virizion, then hopefully I can be in a pretty okay spot. So I'm going to commit the shield, looking to switch into Virizion, and it's a simultaneous switch as my opponent knew that was my win con, and they make the swap. And that is really unfortunate for me. They're making it to another move, but at this point, they can just bring in Tentacruel, and the Panda sweeps. So I throw 1 in the move, and I realize in an instant I have thrown the game. They brought in Pangoro. I could have just clicked on Sacred Sword, KO'd them, and won the game. But because I thought they were going to bring in Tentacruel, I did 1 in the move, and Parabolic Charge, while it hits for super effective damage, cannot one-shot an XL Tentacruel, and unfortunately a game that was pretty winnable ends in a loss. Hopping into the final match, leading Virizion into Como-O. Considering that my backline would both be hitting full resisted damage with Volt Switch onto Como-O, I'm thrilled to see this on the lead. This is terrific. I make another Sacred Sword, but I do lose charge attack priority. Opponent full sends close combat, but my Virizion barely hangs on and will be able to win the zeros or force a shield. They're going to let it go. I'm looking to aggressively switch into the Shadow Ampharos. Opponent is going to bring in Feraligatr, and the fact that they're staying is a really good sign for me. Hydro Cannon, shield it up. I'm going to throw one and then go for the Trailblaze. I probably could have Trailblazed instantly here, and that way, of course, the next Volt Switch would be doing more damage. I know that since they're the non-Shadow Feraligatr, I can actually survive this. Hydro does a lot, but it is survivable. In comes a Magnezone, and boosted Brutal Swing is going to hurt. Brutal Swing connects. It's a non-Shadow Magnezone as well. I stay in just to get the boosted damage that I can, and now I can bring in Heliolisk. My goodness, the frame drops. Watching these back just hurts my soul, man. Niantic, please fix your game. The move updates are amazing, but the frame drops are absolutely ridiculous. The Wild Charge does quite a bit, but since I'm an electric type, I can survive it. I shield again, they go for another one. In comes the Feraligatr, and unfortunately Feraligatr just can't make a move, as I'm going to be able to fire off the Breaking Swipe, KO the Feraligatr, in comes Magnezone, and there's another Breaking Swipe ready to go. So after a tricky lead, unfortunately for my opponent, the backline was just very heavily in my favor, so I'm able to take the win. All in all, I think Shadow Ampharos and Heliolisk are both really improved with these changes. And the fact that Feraligatr is as strong as it is in the Open Ultra League at the current moment means that having some electric types can definitely work out in your favor. Heliolisk, definitely one of my favorite Pokemon of all time, so seeing Heliolisk after it unfortunately got nerfed with Breaking Swipe going from 100% debuff to 50% debuff, having it get a little bit of resurgence due to Parabolic Charge rework is definitely something that I'm quite happy about. And Shadow Ampharos, my goodness. Shadow Ampharos was already an elite safe switch. I typically ran it with Brutal Swing and Focus Blast last season because there was a lot of Guzzlord, but now the pacing on both Brutal Swing and Trailblaze is absolutely ridiculous. I wouldn't be surprised if people start running Guzzlord, just because Guzzlord will be a very effective way to answer the Shadow Ampharos safe switch, now that Ampharos will be running Brutal Swing Trailblaze. And I guess a little bit of counterplay could be, if you're expecting to see that Guzzlord, you could potentially run something like Trailblaze Focus Blast, but realistically, I think the Giratina coverage is probably too good to give up overall. But still, a lot of different things that you can, kind of different movesets that you can experiment with and see which ends up working out best. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you, as always, to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.